What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here with our core plays for this week's Houston Open. Going to touch on my top 6 GPP players priced $8,000 and above on Draftkings, and I think you might want to consider heading into this weekend. Out of the last 5 videos, we've had 4 winners. That would be a Tom Kim, Keegan Bradley, and then of course Seamus Power and Russell Henley. So we're on a little bit of a heater when it comes to this video, so you don't want to miss it. But we're going to go over some of the higher upside plays that you can get to for this GPP contest. Players that I think have legit winning upside at the top of the leaderboard, where again a lot of that win equity is, and some of the plays might be a little bit chalky, but then you're going to get a few of those low owned gems as well, kind of like a Russell Henley last week or Seamus Power the week before. We've seen a few chalky winners, particularly towards the beginning of this season, but of late some of those lower owned plays have started to get it done there too. So that's why we kind of mix it up when it comes to some of the chalk and some of the lower owned plays, and to give you a little bit of a diversified portfolio per se heading into this weekend. So let's stop jibber jabbing. Let's go ahead and get this thing rocking. Alrighty, got our projections up, and I guess we'll start with the fact that there's a hurricane down here. So apologize that the content's coming out a little bit later, but they are evacuating people like 2 miles away. I'm a little bit inland down here in South Florida, so I don't have to worry about it as much. But yeah, we're about to get directly hit by the storm. So I've had to get water, make sure that everything is hatched up, that sort of thing. But hey, we're here with the content, and I'm excited to watch this golf tournament as all hell rages outside. But let's get into these key stats. Memorial Park Golf Club, golf course, I should say. It's a municipal. It's no golf club. It's no exclusive course out there. This is something that everyone can play, which I love about it. But it's an interesting golf course. Shots gained around the green is my #1 key stat. We're not used to seeing that. Driving distance is important. It's a long par 70, 7,400 yards. And a lot of the iron shots, you can see it from the longer iron ranges, right? 150 to 175. 175 to 200, 50 to 125 is always going to be a common range as it's 75 yards wide. I think that's the real thing that people forget about, right? Is that it's just a larger physical distance than a lot of the other buckets that the PGA Tour is tracking. You can see more emphasis on the longer irons. So let's say 6 iron in, maybe 7 iron in for a lot of these players is where a lot of your iron shots are going to come from. In terms of the other stats, I'm looking at putting on Bermuda. It's a Bermuda course. Shots gained at hard golf courses, you are going to see a scoring average close to a shot over par, and it should play firm and fast as well. If you saw my course breakdown, I talked about how it's in Texas. Last year, they got a torrential downpour the day before the event, also there on Friday and Saturday evening. It played a lot easier than what we were expecting as a result too, but it still played 0.8 shots over par. So even with receptive greens, easier conditions overall, slower greens because they were also a little bit more wet, it still played well over par. So we're expecting this to be firm and fast, even more difficult than what we saw before. Looking on putting on fast greens, shots gained on Texas courses, they all tend to have similar windy conditions, also firm and fast greens, and some par 3 scoring because it is a par 70. But with that out of the way, right, the kind of golfers that we're looking for, right, distance guys that are solid all-around players, right? We know approach play is always going to be of the utmost importance, but if you're a solid, well-rounded player, right, that can gain around the green, gain with the putter off the tee and with the approach play, you're going to be at an especially big advantage this week, because when you have that all-around game, like a Scottie Scheffler, for example, you can take on major championship-type conditions. We've seen him compete at the PGA, US Open, obviously won the Masters there for his first ever major championship. Scottie Scheffler's the sort of prototype that we're looking for, particularly because he's good on Bermuda. You can see a few other new categories have added to the table here. We've got shots gained putting on Bermuda over his baseline. So, typically we have the putting numbers on here, but now we can compare it to his baseline where, the 0.12 shot, 0.19 shots is even better when you compare it to what he's usually doing over his last 50 rounds, which is a negative putter. So we would expect him to regress positively this week on Bermuda grass. And then around the green, it's the same story, right? So he gains a third of a stroke around the green on Bermuda. That's still 0.12 shots better than his baseline. So you might think that because Scottie is such a solid around the green player, that it wasn't that big of a boost on Bermuda, but yeah, it's still right around a 0.12 shot boost. So he's better both around the green and putting on the surface this week. He's got the off the tee distance we're looking for. And if we look at his last 16 rounds, so Really trying to zoom in on some of the recent form here, you can see he's gaining about 3/4 of a stroke per round, both off the tee and on approach. And the putter has kind of been lagging behind. But the reason to like him this week is, first off, last event didn't have shots gained metrics, and he looked a lot more comfortable on the greens, particularly on Saturday and Sunday, after he switched from his mallet putter to a blade style putter, like he used all of last season, right? So at the CJ Cup, he switched to the mallet. I saw it in person. It didn't go all that well. He used it through the first 2 rounds of last week at Mayakoba, and then switched back to All Reliable and shot a 62 there on, or 63, something like it was 8 under par there on Sunday. If he can continue that momentum with the flat stick, which again is not included in the last 16 rounds because that was at an event without shots gained metrics, I mean, watch out. Right, you're looking at somebody who's been absolutely striping it. He's still number 4 in total model ranking, despite not being in the best form. And last year, finished in second place to Jason Kokrak, who Jason Kokrak went nuclear on Sunday. I mean, shooting 4 or 5 under par around this track is not easy to do, particularly with Sunday pin locations and Sunday pressure. But he was right there in contention. Scottie shot himself up the leaderboard there on Saturday, shot a 62 around Memorial Park last year, which is, I believe, the course record to this point, and probably won't be sniffed for quite some time. I mean, to take this golf course, which is, again, going to play over par to 8 under, I mean, you're absolutely flawless around there. You can't make any mistakes to get to that sort of score. He has that comfortability. He putted well here last year. The putter through Saturday and Sunday was unbelievable last week. The ball striking is there. He's a great player on Bermuda. There's a reason why he's 30% owned. So you know how I said like we were going to mix in some of these chalky plays and some of the lower owned plays? I think Scottie Scheffler is a piece of chalk that I just can't get off of, right? Because every single metric that I'm looking for, he checks not just, like a little bit. He's not just checking it off the list. He's checking it off emphatically, right? It's one of the best players in that category of anyone in the field. So again, he's 11,500. He's expensive and he's highly owned. But I think it's well worth it. It's definitely somebody that I'll be getting to. Next up, we got Sammy Burns. So, best friend of a Scottie Scheffler and a similar player. Long off the tee, one of the better approach players that we're going to have on tour. Now, his around the green play historically was something that was kind of holding Sam Burns back. When you take a look at his last 50 measured rounds, you can see it's not really the case. Is losing 0.16 shots per round. And then over his last 16 rounds, he's actually a gainer with his around the green play. So it hasn't quite been as huge a negative as what we're used to seeing from him historically. And then at this golf course, he's been one of the better spike players that we've seen. So he had a 7th place finish both last year and the first iteration there in 2021. And if you look at his round by round shots gained, he has the most rounds over 3 shots gained to the field of anybody at this golf course. So out of the 8 rounds that they've played here, he's accomplished that feat, which is over 3 shots gained in a round 3 times, which is, I believe, 2 more than anybody else in the field. I think the next highest was just 1, with 1 pop round from other players. And that includes players that won, like a Jason Kokrak, right? A Carlos Ortiz there in 2019. That was something that they didn't even accomplish multiple times because of how difficult this golf course is. Imagine if he cleans up his act, right? The reason why he wasn't running away with those victories was because of some of the errant rounds in between, where he has double, triple bogeys, which are more than possible, particularly in hole 16 and 17 around this track. You only have 2 water hazards in play. One of them is like hardly in play at all. But then you have a massive lake between 16 and 17. You guys have seen the course breakdown. You know what I'm talking about. He got into insane amount of trouble there multiple times over the last 2 iterations. So if Sam Burns could just survive those 2 tee shots, which again are extremely difficult, I understand why he's had the issues that he's had, then I think he could be not posting a top 5, top 7 finish. It could be a win this time around. We call him Bermuda Burns for a reason, even though of late, he's not the best on Bermuda. This is looking at his last 50 measured rounds, so he's gaining 0.66 shots per round on Bermuda. He's just been an even better putter than that of late, right? Gaining close to 0.9 shots per round. So don't look into that too much, right? He's just been so good of late that, looking at his full career baseline is always going to be a negative, but he's still one of the better Bermuda players that we have on tour. He gains around the green on Bermuda. I think that's something I really want to point out here. This is for the career sample size, right? So, you can see of late, right? He's better on Bermuda than his baseline, which you love to see, but he's still right around a neutral player. If you compare that to all of the other surfaces, right, he's well into the negative, right? He's 0.16 shots into the negative, which is kind of similar to the last 50 measured rounds, right? That's where we're getting that stat from. If you look at his career metrics, it's closer to, I believe, like 0.3, 0.5 shots per round. So, if we were to just zoom out more and more and more, it's going to make his Bermuda stats around the green look better and better and better, because of late on Bermuda, he's been excellent, right? Going out there, actually able to gain, or at least get close to gaining, right? He's like just the slightest negative with the around the green play. So I like what we're seeing there. I think he has a lot of room to improve with that sort of play. Charles Schwab Challenge, a comp course that you could use as another Texas course, relatively difficult track off the tee, difficult in general there with Colonial Country Club. He was able to get a win there, right? And Sam Burns was in second place, right? Made it to the playoff. No surprise that I'm getting to these two players at a similar golf course once again. Moving on, we have Aaron Wise at $9,900. I think he's another piece of chalk that I really have to get to, because he's over the years played extremely well at this course. So if we bring up the course history, we get an idea there. A 26th and 11th place finish. So no win, no top 5 finish. So it's not super flashy, but pretty much a top 25 finish the last 2 years. And the recent form is well documented. 15th, 6th, made the cut at the Shriners. Before that, it was a few other top 25 finishes. The shots gained metrics are through the roof. I mean, look at it. He's gaining across the board. I mean, just the slightest loser around the green. And when you look at his shots gained at hard golf courses, and this is for his career, he's a top 5 player in this field. So he's got the ball striking going for him, but more than anything, and this is a larger sample size, right? So this isn't the last 16 rounds. Over his last 50 rounds, he's a gainer in all 4 categories. So that's what I was alluding to. The around the green of late has gone slightly into the negative, but that's not going to worry me all too much when he's a massive gainer both off the tee and on approach. And the putter has gone from one of the worst putters on tour to something that, he's able to rely on right around a quarter of a stroke per round, which is more than respectable. I mean, that's above average on tour. You're looking at probably a top 50, top 60 putter. I mean, nothing crazy. It's not like he's, turned it into an elite putter by any means, but Aaron Wise's ball striking has always been elite. He's been able to carry himself in those 2 categories, but now that he's bringing the putter along, I mean, he's just unlocking so much more upside. And when you take a look at his recent performances, right, he's over his last 50 measured rounds, right, he's close to a half a stroke per round, or I guess 0.4 off the tee, half a stroke per round on approach. Over his last 16, it hasn't been that impressive, right? Like comparatively. Only 0.3 off the tee, 0.13 on approach. Sure, the putting has been there, 2/3 of a stroke per round. Imagine if he has a good ball striking week in a field that, has some top end players, but the medium to lower tier guys are, what you'd expect for a fall swing event. I think he has a ton of upside here at a course that he's had success at, right? The 26th and the 11th place finish, just kind of like a Scottie Scheffler. There's nothing that's going to take me off of him, especially when we take a look at some of the Bermuda stats. Now, the Bermuda putting, this is comparing to the last 50 measured rounds, right? So, when we look at that, that's where he's gaining like what was it over his last 50 measured rounds? Like 0.27 shots per round. His actual career baseline for putting is well into the negative. And I'm pulling this shots gained Bermuda stat here from his career baseline. So, if we're comparing the 2 career numbers, it's not going to be a half a stroke into the negative. In fact, it's actually going to be a positive. He's a little bit of a better putter on Bermuda. Same thing around the green. You can see around the green, he's a pretty solid player on Bermuda. That's slightly lower than his last 50 measured round baseline, but he's been a better player around the green. He's really stepped up every facet of his game. And historically, a player that's a plus on Bermuda grass, kind of similar to Sam Burns, right? When you're gaining 0.8 shots per round with the putter of late, it's pretty difficult, right, to be a positive to your baseline. But, if we look at the career numbers, sometimes it makes a little bit more sense. Moving on, we've got Jason Day as our mid 9K option. Love him there at 9,500 because of his recent form with the irons. You take a look at the last 16 measured rounds, he's getting 1.15 shots per round approach, gaining off the tee, and the putter hasn't really been there. And this is a golf course where he's flashed in the past. So if you take a look at his event history over the last 2 years, a 54th, so made the cut, and then a 7th place finish there in 2021. And the recent form speaks for itself. I mean, he's getting on a roll there, 21st, 11th, and 8th place his last 3 starts. I really like the way that he's trending, and especially when you couple that with a few different things. First off, Bermuda, decent for his putting. You can see right around his baseline when it comes to the putting. Around the green, a better player around the green on Bermuda than most surfaces. But when it comes to a course fit, right? We're looking for around the green play. Jason Day, one of the best short game players of all time. We're looking for driving distance. He can still get it out there a long way. He just can't hit fairways for his life. That's completely okay around Memorial Golf Course. And furthermore, a great let's just take off these key stats over here, right? Let's just go through them one by one, right? Around the green, checks that. We talked about it. Driving distance, talked about that one. With the long irons, he's one of the better long iron players on tour. Also in the wedges, it's those mid-tier ranges, right? That 125 to 150 he's not so good at. I guess that 150 to 175 would be included there. Tends to be where he's a little bit average, but get him those 200-yard shots, get him those 50 to 125-yard shots, and he's going to excel. So you can check that off. Putting on Bermuda, around the green on Bermuda, shots gained at hard golf courses. I mean, Jason Day, a tested, experienced player that I have no problems with getting to at a hard golf course. And let's look at some of the comp courses, right? Bay Hill, TPC, Congaree, he's been okay at all three. He doesn't have any flashy finishes at them, no wins, I should say, to really talk about there. But firm and fast, shots gained putting on fast greens, all of these sort of stats here, bring them up on Fantasy National, rickrungood.com, any, database out there you have access to. He's going to be top 25 in the field in every single category. It's outrageous stuff for Jason Day. He's the perfect course fit. He's coming in with form. The iron play has been otherworldly over the last 16 measured rounds. Just, again, not much you can say in the negative. So somebody I'll be getting to in bunches. Next up, we have two more unique picks here. So this is our, 9/bottom of the 9K range options here. We've got Joel Damon at $9,000. So Joel Damon, never going to be a play that you feel great about, particularly when he's $9,000. But hear me out here, okay? Somebody I grew on as I looked at him throughout the week. So $9,000, gaining off the tee, kind of know that it's his thing, right? He's long and accurate off the tee. I think he has a reputation for not being that long, but he's at the very least at tour average in terms of his distance, which, is still carrying it 305 yards for goodness sakes, but he hits an unbelievable amount of fairways and gaining over a stroke per round on approach. The putter hasn't been there of late, but let's just make sure this isn't a little bit of an enigma, right? So that was the last 16 measure rounds. Oh, over his last 50, he's still gaining off the tee and on approach. Around the green is right around a neutral, and sure, the putter isn't there. So we know the ball striking, the tee to green play, I mean, if you include around the green, is going to be there. Let's look at the putting stats, right? So his shots gained putting on Bermuda, he's half a stroke better per round than his baseline. So he has a ton of room to improve there. Let's look at his around the green over baseline. Okay, so -0.2. So maybe not the best player on Bermuda around the green. We're going to have to deal with that with Joel Damon here. But what about the putting, right? Let's look at the course history. Oh, he finished in 5th place here last year. And I can tell you for a fact that Joel Damon, to finish in the top 5, has to spike tremendously with the putter to get to that sort of performance. So if he was able to do that last year, he's a solid putter on Bermuda historically. He's doing everything but putting of late. Do I think he has a chance to go out there and spike this week? Absolutely. I think it's well within his range of outcomes. And in fact, at just right around 10% ownership, even though he's overpriced, I think it's probably a good thing that he's here at $9,000. I mean, if Joel Damon was $8,500, just $400, $500 cheaper, I think you'd be looking at 20, maybe 25% owned Joel Damon. Somebody who's getting a lot more attention than I think he would deserve to at that point. But now that we have to overpay a little bit, it feels a little bit more uncomfortable, particularly with a 9 in front of his price tag there at the 9K range. I think it's to our benefit, and it's definitely a situation that I'll be taking advantage of. And lastly, the last pick we're going to get to here is Davis Riley at $8,400, a Bermuda specialist. You can see he's 0.64 shots gained better per round on Bermuda. Around the green, 0.12 shots better per round on Bermuda grass. And of late, he's starting to get it going in the right direction. I mean, kind of like a Joel Damon, right? 3rd, 16th, 37th, 64th, right? Just the finishes are getting better and better for Joel Damon. Similar for Davis Riley, right? Not progressively getting better, but he's made his last 4 cuts, 2 top 21 finishes. The 52nd and 67th, I believe those are no-cut events. So yeah, I can't give him that much credit. right, for a made cut at a no-cut event there at the CJ and Zozo. But still, top 21 finishes at cut events, that's what we like to see from Davis Riley. And the shots gained metrics also back it up. So it's not just the finishes, but he's gaining close to a stroke per round in terms of his approach play. Off the tee, has had quite a few penalty shots, so he's losing right around a stroke per round there. So he's got to clean that up. But if you remember, it's all about driving distance here. There's a ton of room off the tee. There's not a ton of hazards to worry about other than holes 16 and 17, which Sam Burns did have the issues with in the past. But if he can clean that up, the putter's turned around. That was the issue for Davis. You look at his last 50 rounds, you'll get an idea, right? He's a loser with the putter. He's getting close to half a stroke per round now with the putter. And the ball striking categories are always going to be there. He's one of the better approach players we have on tour. Off the tee, solid there as well. I think that he's bringing a ton of upside in this sort of situation, and somebody that I'll definitely be playing as well. And if we take a look at the course history, right, he's only got one start here, but it was a 29th place finish. So it's not like, he came here, missed the cut last year, that sort of thing. He's seen the course. He should have some sort of game plan for it now that he saw it there in 2021, and maybe improves on his performance now that he's figured out the flat stick, and we know how electric of a player he can be in terms of the ball striking. All right, guys, that is all I've got for the core picks. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead and smash that like button, but also comment down below who you've got winning this week. I'm going to have to go ahead and take Scottie. I think everything is pointing to it, but if Sam Burns won, somebody like a Jason Day maybe, even a Joel Damon, I guess that would be the one that's a little bit out of whack there, right? Our long shot. I think one of those four gets the job done. But go ahead and let me know your thoughts down below. And until next time, guys, best of luck. We'll have our live stream tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time, going through everything you need to know for this week's event. We'll go through a weather report, your live questions, some GPP strategy and lineup construction talk, the usual, what we're doing here every single week. So make sure to stop on by for that. But like I said, best of luck, and I'll catch you guys next time.